Every merchant was dead, yet a jeweled princess still watched from her throne. The men who found her had not crossed the desert looking for a dead kingdom. They had been sent to recover brass vessels said to contain jinn imprisoned by Solomon. But before they could reach the sea where those vessels lay, they had to enter a city that appeared to have no gate, and that killed the first 12 men who looked over its wall. Deep inside the palace, beneath a jeweled dome, a young woman sat on a couch raised above the floor. Pearls covered her robe. A crown of red gold rested on her head. Two armed guardians stood motionless on the steps below her. Her cheeks still held their color, and whenever the air moved through the chamber, her eyes appeared to follow the men who had entered. For one suspended moment, the expedition believed they had found the only living soul in the city of brass. Then Talib, their messenger, looked more closely. The woman was not alive. She had been embalmed so perfectly that death had failed to change her face. To understand why men would cross a dead city to reach her, the tale must return to a royal court in Damascus. The story begins with the Umayyad Caliph Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan listening to accounts of Solomon, son of David, and the power he was said to hold over jinn and rebellious spirits. According to the tale, Solomon confined some of those beings inside vessels of brass, sealed the mouths with lead, pressed his signet into the seal, and cast them into the sea. A traveler claimed that fishermen in a distant land sometimes drew those vessels up in their nets. When one was opened, smoke rose to the clouds and a terrified jinn emerged, begging Solomon for forgiveness without knowing that centuries had passed. Abd al-Malik wanted proof. He ordered an expedition to bring the vessels back. The order traveled west to Musa ibn Nusair, who appears here not as the historical governor preserved in chronicles, but as the commander of a legendary journey. With him went Talib ibn Sahal, the caliph's messenger, and Sheikh Abd al-Samad, an elderly scholar who could read old inscriptions and knew the roads beyond the settled lands. They gathered soldiers, guides, craftsmen, camels, water, and supplies, then moved into a landscape where ordinary maps became useless. Their destination was the coast, yet the road to it passed through a chain of ruins, each one warning that wealth, armies, and long life had never saved their owners from death. Musa ordered the inscriptions copied. Talib kept writing. On a high hill, the expedition found a horseman made of brass. One hand pointed across the desert, and an inscription promised that anyone seeking the city of brass should rub that hand. When they did, the figure spun with the speed of lightning and stopped facing a new direction. They followed it. Farther on stood a pillar of black stone. An immense jinn was trapped within it up to his chest, with burning eyes, 4 arms, and the 4 legs of a lion. The creature told them that Solomon had imprisoned him for rebellion. It also told them the city and the sea of the sealed vessels were near. The expedition moved on, carrying the uncomfortable proof that their destination belonged to the same world as the prison they had just seen. At last, 2 towers flashed on the horizon like paired fires. Between them rose walls of black stone so high that the city seemed cut off from the sky. A rider spent days circling the perimeter and returned without finding an open gate. From a nearby ridge, Musa could see domes, gardens, and trees heavy with fruit inside. Nothing moved. No human voice crossed the wall. Only an owl and a raven broke the silence. The men built a ladder reinforced with iron, a task that consumed an entire month. When it finally reached the top, Musa asked for a volunteer to climb, look into the city, and find a way to open the gate from within. The first man reached the top, stared into the city, clapped his hands, cried that it was beautiful, and threw himself over the wall. His body struck the ground below. Musa ordered the attempt stopped, but another soldier insisted that he would remain steady. He climbed, looked down, and followed the first. Then a third went, then a fourth. One after another, 12 men reached the wall and leapt to their deaths. The city had not fired an arrow or raised a sword. It only showed each man something so compelling that he chose the fall. With 12 bodies below the ladder, Musa was ready to abandon the expedition rather than sacrifice the rest of his company. Sheikh Abd al-Samad refused to turn back. He climbed while reciting prayers and verses of protection. At the top, he saw what the others had seen. 10 beautiful women beckoning from below, with what appeared to be a shining sea beneath them. The illusion pulled at him, but he forced himself to look again. The water vanished. The bodies of the 12 soldiers lay where they had fallen. Abd al-Samad walked along the wall until he found a brass horseman built into a golden gate. An inscription instructed him to turn a pin in the figure's chest 12 times. When he did, the gate opened with a sound like thunder. Behind it, the gatekeepers sat dead at their posts, the key still hanging from an old man's waist. Half the expedition entered while the others remained outside. The city appeared to have died in the middle of an ordinary day. Shops stood open. Scales hung ready for use. Brass utensils remained arranged in rows. In the silk market, bolts of cloth woven with gold and silver waited beside merchants whose skin had dried against their bones. Jewelers sat among pearls and precious stones. Money changers remained surrounded by gold. Perfumers kept their musk, ambergris, and camphor. No thief had emptied the stalls because no living hand had survived to steal from another. The deeper the men walked, the clearer the city's warning became. Everything its people had valued was still there, and none of it had purchased one more day of life. In the palace, the expedition found treasure chambers, and beyond them, the young woman on the raised couch. A golden tablet identified her as Tedmer, daughter of the king of the Amalekites. Her inscription did not describe a magical curse. It described 7 years without rain. The city's stores emptied. Its people slaughtered their animals for food. Tedmer sent trusted men across the surrounding lands with measures of gold, but there was no grain left to buy. Wealth had become useless. The gates were shut, the treasures displayed, and the city waited for death. Tedmore allowed future visitors to take what they could carry, but she left one command: do not touch the jewels and garments placed upon her body. Her eyes seemed alive only because quicksilver beneath them moved when the air stirred. Musa accepted the warning. There was already enough wealth in the palace to fill their sacks without disturbing the dead. Talib did not agree. He argued that a corpse had no use for pearls, a golden crown, or a jeweled robe, and that such treasures would make a worthy gift for the caliph. He climbed the steps between the two silent guardians. The instant he reached them, both moved. One struck him from behind. The other swept its sword across his neck, and Talib's head fell at the foot of the throne. The guardians returned to stillness. The warning had named the limit, greed had crossed it, and the city had claimed one final victim. Musa ordered his men to leave Tedmur untouched. The expedition closed the gate and continued to the coast, where the people of that remote shore knew the vessels Musa had come to find. Divers descended into the sea and returned with 12 brass bottles, their mouths sealed with lead and marked with Solomon's signet. Musa carried them back to Abd al-Malik. When the seals were broken, the tale says, smoke rose from each vessel and a jinn appeared, crying repentance to a prophet who had been dead for generations. The caliph had received the proof he wanted, but the real discovery was the city along the road. 12 men destroyed by illusion, a messenger destroyed by greed, and a princess surrounded by wealth that could not buy rain, food, or life. The City of Brass is not told as archaeology or literal history. It is a medieval Arabic tale that places historical names inside a world of Solomon, jinn, enchanted machines, and speaking ruins. Its warning is simpler than its wonders. A city may preserve every treasure and still lose every person who treasured it. If another forgotten tale should be told after nightfall, leave its name below and subscribe for the next story.